media. This afternoon, Mr. Sharma Chairman Region number 10, will be reading a press statement, and it's to give an update on the region's position on the COI, the Commission of Inquiry, and matters in relation to 18th of July.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for showing interest to ensure that matters in relation to the Commission of Inquiry and matters related to 18th of July in relation to the incident at Linden are recorded in the nation, our side of the story in relation to the presentation of the COIs. I know it has not been made public by the President. However, we were privy to a copy of the COI. We were invited by the leader of the opposition, Mr. David Granger. We were given a copy. And it is based on our impression of this copy that was given to us. And in the preliminary stages of our discussion with members of the family and those who were injured. In fact, we had a meeting with them on Monday, and we are to meet with them tomorrow at 10 o'clock at the regional at my office, at the chambers, my chambers. So we will be meeting with them to be guided by them. These are the people that will guide our position, and only the people that guide the region position. Those persons who would have suffered, and those persons who would have lost their loved ones. And they will continue to guide our position. The people of Linden and Region 10 welcomes the Commission of Inquiry report into the 18th of July shooting to death. And we sense this with victory and some amount of disappointment. A synopsis of the terms of reference for this inquiry indicates that they were required to inquire into the circumstances surrounding the shooting to death, the unit deployed, instructions given, the conduct of police, cause of death of the 3 persons, and determine if police were responsible for the shootings. 2. The role, if any, played by the Minister of Home Affairs. 3. The nature of violence and destruction and the perpetrators. 4. Make recommendations to improve policing. And 5. Recommendations for compensation for injury, loss, or damage. The commissioners have done their job, and their verdict is that we believe that the police were responsible for the shooting to death of 3 persons, confirm the fact that the people who were eyewitnesses have long concluded. And yesterday, a letter was dispatched to the Commissioner of Police outlining our position in relation to an investigation to be launched as established by the Commission, by this report, of the police involvement in the killing of 3 unarmed citizens. While we welcome the general outcome of the Commission of Inquiry, we are convinced that the criteria used by the Commission of Inquiry, the COI, to assess compensation for death is clearly flawed. The people of Region 10 want to know what was the criteria used. Did the COI assess what was required to maintain a family? Did they assess what it costs to send 2 children to university? Their father have been killed by the Guyana Police Force. Did they assess the future earning capacity of those they slaughtered? Did they assess what they deprived the family of the murdered of? The Commission needs to outline the criteria used. Life is priceless, and sums recommended by the Commissioner to the deceased families and injured are woefully inadequate. No vehicle which is subject to depreciation is worth more than the lives of those who suffered by the police brutality. Let us recall that the young man who was tortured was awarded far more compensation. Is it that life is so cheap in Guyana? Whereas justice was served to the extent that it made clear who were responsible for the murders and manslaughter. The compensation is unrealistic, and the I-pass, to use Guyanese parlance, mothers are without sons, children without father, siblings without brothers. Linden are without 3 courageous citizens who merely stood for their rights. The murder has caused us all to pay the ultimate price for the quality of life under the law. They remain our heroes. and their death will not be in vain. Lest it be forgotten, this struggle was born out of a just demand by Lindeners to secure their rights, be involved in decision-making impacting their well-being, that this right is guaranteed under Article 13, 38, 77 of the Guyana Constitution, and our national leaders were disrespectful of it, coupled with their refusal to heed our calls. The only option available to secure it was street struggle. This struggle began in April, covering dozens of public and private meetings, rallies, all incident-free until the 18th of July, when police provoked a confrontation with the people. For years, the police have targeted the people as enemies and utilized brutality as their modus operandi under the pretense that they are maintaining the peace, law and order. The role of the police for service and protection has been submerged to inept policing techniques, treating the citizens as enemies, scare tactics, planting intelligence to justify deaths and abuses, causing some to flee, cower, accept abuse and incompetence, and remain silent out of fear. These have become accepted as norms and good policing, and promoted by the police, by the government as acceptable. The people of Linden and Region 10 choose to stand their grounds and confront the uniformed tyrants which ultimately brought international attention to what many at home knew. It is in this context of the foregoing that we find the Commissioner's comment on Ms. Vanessa Kisoon and Member Parliament Mr. Desmond Trackman appalling. Caribbean people have always had to struggle for our rights. In 1865 in Guadeloupe, 1690, and 1865 in Jamaica, 1731 in Cuba, 1761 in Suriname, 1763 and 1823 right here in Guyana. The slaves revolted in pursuance of rights for freedom and self-respect. From colonialism, today our people have had to struggle for their rights. We therefore expect that the Caribbean Commissioners would have taken into consideration the political, historical context of the struggle of the people of the Caribbean. They must recognize that when the law is being used to deprive people of their rights that are given by the Constitution, as the police and government were doing, then the people have a constitutional right to protest. We therefore believe that Ms. Vanessa Kisoon, Member Parliament, and Member Parliament Trackman, and the people of Linden were promoting and protecting their constitutional rights. We support them and see their action as correct and wish to charge the Commission of Inquiry for missing this important fact. Further, the Commission of Inquiry must therefore address the critical question of the tension that exists between law and order and rights, and the law and the law enforcement have always been challenged when they violate these rights. That is the correct thing. Burnham did it, Ratney did it, Jagon did it, trade unions did it, and our rights, we must continue to fight the laws that threaten our rights. Further, the Commission of Inquiry must therefore address the critical question of how do we deal with the report that concludes that there was no indication that the senior officers in Linden met, assessed the situation, developed an agreed approach, and executed. The acting Commissioner of Police said he gave no instructions to anyone to employ the use of firearm, and further noted that he was remote participant in giving instructions. The commissioners also found that discharging a shotgun is hardly the way to scare persons and ought never have to be used in the circumstances. The use of lethal barreled weapon, which hot-tempered Senior Superintendent Hickins told the commissioner was justified. The use of 00 that killed the 3 citizens. The commission concluded in the circumstances would not have been reasonable, but would constitute excessive force. This is the force the Minister of Home Affairs manages, through policies and legislations. The people desire peace. That peace must be built on equal rights and justice, and guaranteed under the law. This is the peace we seek, and the peace we will settle for. The power rests with the people and will be applied until equal rights and justice are restored for every Linden, every citizen of Region 10. In this regard, it is short-sighted for the Commission to ignore events leading up to the 18th of July. Had they examined these, they would have appreciated that man's inane desire to be respected would influence his actions. They seem to have missed the fact that they were picketing letters to the press exchanged between the governments and opposition, and from the onset, and that the people raised their voice demanding the right to be involved in this critical decision that was affecting their lives. The government response was not one of intransigent and to be ridiculed and demonized. The people in the state media, we were all called all sorts of names, and as such, it became necessary to emulate the strategies of our foreparents, fellow Buxtonians who stopped trying to gain governor's attention. Hubert Nathaniel Critchlow, Chedi Jagan, Forbes Barnum, Martin Luther King Jr., Nelson Mandela, Mahatma Gandhi, Malcolm X to name some. And whereas such actions are historically labeled wrong by the status quo, civil disobedience have always worked to secure justice in the long run, of which the commissioners are also equal beneficiaries, since those actions contributed to ending slavery, indentureship, and colonialism, and secure the right of the oppressed and marginalized. In ignoring these causatives, factors, the jurists erroneously concluded the people were wrong to block the Mackenzie Bridge. The action of 18th of July that led to the Commissioner's report presents this nation a blueprint to work with should the recommendations be applied. They augur well for ensuring better policing and keeping with the force's motto of serve and protection, for which years have been denied the ordinary man and woman. To this end, gratitude is extended to the citizens of Guyana, the commissioners for this and their staff, the police councils. Special thanks to all those lawyers who represented the people's just cause. Mr. Basil Williams, Mr. Nigel Hughes and Associates, Mr. Selwyn Peters, Mr. Joe Harmon. In the meanwhile, the region intends to act with dispatch to ensure that justice and that there adequate compensation to the families of the deceased, to those who have been injured, and the people equally continue to struggle to realize the full implementation of the 21st of August Agreement and for the development of Region 10 and its people. That is the statement in relation to the matters, and we also have the letter that was dispatched to the Commissioner of Police in relation to having recognized the findings of the Commission of Inquiry and outlining in the 4th of March Stabroek newspapers that he would stick by the findings and take seriously those matters for implementation. We dispatched a letter to the Commissioner asking, and let me just read the letter, with reference to the subject, the people of Linden, Region 10 call on you to execute due diligence in upholding the police force's motto of service and protection, and ensure that officers are held accountable for the 18th of July 2012 incident that resulted in the unjustified deaths of Shamroy Boyle, Alan Lewis, and Ron Somerset, and the injuries of persons as listed in the reports of the Linden Commission of Inquiry. Following the Commissioners, Justice Leslie Wolf, OJ Chairman, Mr. K.D. Knights, SC, Ms. Diane Sitalal, SC, Dana Sitalal, SC, former Court of Appeal Judge, Ms. Claudette Singh, CCH, Ms. Jurist Cecil Kennard, former Chancellor of the Judiciary. All able jurists have insisted the verdict that we believe the police were responsible for the shooting to death of 3 persons, such as deserving the attention of action, And this verdict was arrived at after months of deliberation, and evidence ought not to be taken lightly, since the right to life is sacred and duly protected in the Guyana Constitution, and of which the force is duty-bound to act in accordance with. And having regard that the Commission have submitted its finding to the people of Guyana, the task is now yours to be guided by this report and execute actions consistent with law and ensure that those responsible are held accountable and recommendations enshrined are pursued to ensure a better force. Further, sir, note is taken of the statement in Stabroek News March 4, 2013, where the public is giving your assurance that the police would have to stand by the report, given our long-held tradition where a man's word is his bond. The people of Linden and Region 10 anticipate you would valiantly abide by this honor, and as they, like every right-thinking human being, deserve the right for justice. Thank you very much.
Okay, we're now open for questions.
Not your kindly. Mr. Sharma, you said you're meeting with the relatives tomorrow.
Yeah.
Already relatives, well, at least one relative said that they're willing to accept the compensation. Does this mean you'd be guided by this and you'd advise them to pay the compensation?
Well, on Monday that matter came up. In fact, let me just read exactly what was said by some of those relatives. The matter did come up. And in relation to what was said, was that, in fact, without going into the names of those who said it, there were words of it was unjust, it was disrespectful, and in short, they would not support going for this legal compensation, which they believe does not justify the actions of the police in any way. So these were some of the sentiments that were expressed at our first meeting on Monday at my office. Now, I don't know if this is a general sentiment, but we had 17 persons at my office on Monday, and we expect to have all the persons who were shot, injured, and those who suffered in terms of loss of life, the families. Because we believe that we do not want to have representation for only those who were killed. Representation must be given to all those who were injured also. And in discussions on Monday, we also had persons from the 10th and the 12th of August. And in fact, this morning I spoke to Mr. Randy Tello, who was shot on the 14th of August in the face, and he too will be at tomorrow's meeting.
The government is already saying that the possibility of an increase in the award is not possible. How would you be approaching?
Well, in that discussion on Monday, we also said to the families and said to those who were shot that as a collective, the region will be pursuing legal direction in terms of legal advice and legal actions if that is required.
One more question. I don't know, people probably spoke to you about the report itself before. Mr. Solomon, do you take any personal responsibility? I think this was a question last week before the commission. Given that the report is out and the report says the court has failed with conditionalities and those conditionalities, do you take any responsibility for what happened on the day?
I take no personal responsibility. I don't believe that the organizers of the protest, and that is clear in the statement that I just read, take any personal responsibility for the fact that nothing was out of the ordinary in all the demonstrations that we conducted. Absolutely nothing. We've held over 15 demonstrations. This was the point of where persons were now prepared to do a 5 days demonstration. We had shut the town down on the 5th of April, almost 4 months before 18th of July. We had a very massive public meeting on the 1st of July at the Control Center. There was nothing out of the ordinary in terms of the demonstrations we had. what we were demanding for the past 4 months before the 18th of July was an engagement by the government. And instead of engaging us on the 18th of July, after those brothers were killed and persons were injured, we were engaged on the 19th of July. We did nothing out of the army.
So you don't believe that blocking the bridge infringed on other people's rights?
I believe in the cause of rights in terms of communal responsibility. The region and the people of Linden and region then took the stand that would have ensured their constitutional rights were respected, which was any decision that is to be made on behalf of the people must include the people. So in the first instance, the rights of the people were transgressed, and they were standing up in defense of those rights.
Thank you very much, members.